Hello traders, we have a quick update for you today. We're going to cover just some high-level news, what we need to be looking out for in the markets this week and what can greatly affect our trades and our stocks. We'll cover the public 10K portfolio that we are swing trading into long-term investments and where those positions stand. And then the last thing we'll cover, I had a friend ask about DSV, a silver miner, silver junior, and so we'll cover maybe just briefly where gold and silver stands in the markets, and then maybe I could do a follow-up video sometime of my my true opinions here on kind of the precious metals. So long story short, there's no major data releases early in the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there are no announcements. There are a lot of key reports that are supposed to be coming out at the end of the week if the government reopens. The government is expected to reopen around November 12th to 15th. Conveniently, it might be the 15th, which would mean that none of this news gets released. Now, we don't know if this news is going to be good or bad, but a long story short, just to kind of run you through what this is. So anytime you see the word core in front of an announcement, that just means that there's an exclusion. So core CPI means it's the consumer price index excludes food and energy. So what each of these mean are, like, the CPI is basically showing you if inflation is truly cooling, and this directly impacts the Fed's decision to cut or raise interest rates. If inflation goes up too high, they might not cut interest rates. If inflation is holding steady or even dropping, it gives them more runway to drop rates. Inflation typically used to be held at 2%. That was sort of the baseline. We're sitting at 3% now, so it's kind of a new normal. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to 2% or really what the plan is, because there's a bit of stagflation going on in the market. That being said, these announcements are going to come out. Probably one of the biggest one is unemployment claims. If we click into it here, this is showing the year's been pretty flat. Like, we've had a couple of announcements that were in the red, that were worse than expected, better than expected. What I believe could affect these numbers are there's about 175,000 tech layoffs announced in October. I don't know if those actually came to fruition in October, if those will be later into the year, but there have been some announcements of layoffs. So that could boost this number, and that would be not great for the markets. We have the PPI, so producer inflation. This essentially means, like, think of it like a furniture manufacturer is having to spend more on lumber, therefore it signals that furniture will be more expensive to the consumer in the future. So it's kind of a leading indicator on where inflation is going to go, so they use this as well. Last ones are like retail sales and consumer spending, just trends. If retail sales have plummeted off a cliff and no one's spending money anymore, that's going to indicate that there is a market slowdown. So the takeaways here are that there's no news being announced tomorrow and Wednesday. There is a lot of news that could be announced Thursday and Friday that could shake up the markets. So just be cautious of that with the positions that you hold. Another note that would be bullish would be that after the markets reopen, every time but one in 2018 have they been, it was red in 2018, every other time it's been green. So the markets rally when the government comes back online. So that's pretty bullish. Other bullish trends we have is November and April is historically just the strongest stretch for stocks in the markets. Another bullish trend we have is if the S&P 500 is up 10% on the year by October, 100% of the time it's finished in the green from November to December. Okay, so there's lots of things that are pointing that we could have a pretty bullish November, December, especially if this data does get released and it's pretty static. It's not too bad. If it is bad, then all bets are off, and who knows what's going to happen. So again, just keep an eye on the news here. We'll jump into the market. So what actually happened today? We had a pretty big gap up here, and the S&P 500 was up 1.5%. NASDAQ was up 2.2%. So we definitely hit this 50-day moving average the other day. The market got spooked. This was like last Thursday, Friday, and then we've kind of bounced back since then. I don't know if we've fully taken structure. We obviously haven't broken the recent all-time highs, but our 10-day is above the 20-day moving average and 20 is above the 50, so we have still not broken our trend. We are in a bull run as of right now. Looking into the transactions that we had, so we're swing trading Duolingo and Celsius right now on our 10K public portfolio. We bought 50 stocks on Friday when the stocks had plummeted, and we bought some Celsius options on Friday as well. Celsius had gone down that trading day, so I was already behind on Celsius. And as you can see, Celsius swung back up today, and we had Duolingo actually drop. It was the lowest performing stock in my portfolio. Now, our thesis on Duolingo was that it's going to sit in this consolidation range that it was in back here, winding up for a while, and so that it could hit a low of 170 and hit a high of 250. Our exit, we're aiming for the 250. If it does break through this 170 eventually, that would be our stop loss and where we'd exit this trade. So more upside than downside. We actually got in, I got in at 284. So I got in almost right at the bottom of this first red candle here. And I'm just going to see where this takes me. Lastly, questions about like gold and silver. So gold has been by far my most profitable single trade I've ever done. I bought gold, a lot of gold, in February of 2020. So I bought it like right in there. And since then it's been up about, I believe about 100%. Let's see. Yeah, it's about 102% right now. Silver has basically followed that same trend. So it has been a little slower to move than gold. It has spiked up here. So what do I think about gold and silver right now? So it's tough for me to justify buying more gold, but I'm not going to sell my gold right now. I think gold could rally up even to like the 5,000 mark. I think silver could rally up to about the $65 mark. How I justify that is if we go back to the month chart here, for example, on silver. Silver spiked up back in 2011 and then crashed back down by like 70% here. It's spiked up right now, but money's worth about 30% less than it was in 2011. So it's at $50, 30% more would be another $15, which means we could get to about $65 here. And that would be equivalent to the highs that we saw back in 2011. Not to say that we couldn't go higher or that we won't maybe make it that high, but just to give you some insight that we might not be at the top of silver yet. But just looking at this chart, it is like really hard for me to justify buying silver at these levels, especially when it had a 70% crash coming out of it and consolidated for like how long did it sit in this range here? It sat in this range for 6 years where it was up and down 34% constantly, just kind of chopping for 6 years. And so I guess the rule and takeaway here is you want to be buying the stock when it's chopping and doing nothing. Like that is when no one's talking about silver, when silver is the forgotten stock, when gold is the forgotten stock, that's when you buy gold. When everyone starts talking about it and everyone is buying into it, that's when I would have my hesitation. Now, my brother's invested in a stock called DSV, Discovery Silver Corp. As you can see, this is a monthly chart. Let's go to the weekly chart. This chart is just insane. So shout out my brother and my buddies who are in this stock. This thing is up, it peaked about 850% on the year. It's up over 800% right now on the year. Would I buy DSV today? I mean, based on what we just chatted about, silver might not be at its peak. There's a chance here that silver could run up and you could make another 20, 30, 40% on this stock, if not more. Like, I'm not saying you can't make money on the stock. Do I think there's more to lose than gain on the stock? Yes. I think that if things did turn south quick, you would see this stock dump. A lot of people would take their profits. They've had an amazing year. Those who've ran it all the way up or even partial way up, you're still at 400%. So this is not something I would hold long term at all. This is something that I would probably, if you can position a swing trade, you ride the momentum, you get in and you get out and you take your profits. That's what I'd be recommending here. In my private portfolio, I have actually shorted silver at this point. I've shorted it. I have like 1 year options on a short. I just think that it's kind of hit euphoria at this point. So I'm going to hold my gold. I'm going to short silver. It's a bit of a hedge, so gold and silver will tend to drop at the same time. Now, when silver dropped 70% back in 2011, gold only dropped 45%, so a little more than half. So I'm holding my gold, and if gold does drop and I lose some value on my gold trade, then I'll make it back. I'm basically insuring that trade by shorting silver. And then if silver doesn't hit my marker and maybe gold and silver keep climbing, then that, of course, option will expire worthless, but then my gold will go up in value. So I've kind of hedged myself, and that's the way I've done it. Holding gold, shorting silver, and I can get deeper into some of the technicals on another video, but that's just kind of at a high level how I'm looking at it right now. So in summary of what we talked about, no news being released early in the week. A lot of news could be released if the government does open. If the government doesn't open until maybe like late Friday or Saturday, then we're in the clear. There's another news of not knowing, and ignorance is bliss. And you know, the markets tend to be really bullish this time of year, and we could see some pretty green numbers, and possibly us trying to, you know, squeeze back up to all-time highs here. So pushing that another couple percent, the S&P or SPX and Nasdaq. That's the update for today. I'll keep you posted tomorrow, and then we'll see you guys all on my next video. Thanks so much. Talk soon.